The sun was setting behind the towering stadium, casting long, eerie shadows across the empty parking lot. I clutched my press pass, feeling the familiar thrill of covering the World Cup. It was a dream assignment, one that any sports journalist would kill for. But as I made my way through the security checkpoint, an unshakable sense of dread began to creep in. Something about tonight felt off. The stadium, usually alive with the roar of fans, was unusually silent. I glanced around, noticing how the stands seemed to swallow the dim light. It was the quarterfinals, and the match between Brazil and Germany should have been sold out. Yet the eerie emptiness was palpable. I shrugged it off as pre-game jitters and headed to the press box. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Fellow journalists whispered among themselves, exchanging uneasy glances. I set up my laptop and started jotting down notes, trying to shake the feeling of unease. The players were on the field, warming up, but there was a sluggishness to their movements, as if they were struggling against an invisible force. As the game began, the unease in the air thickened. The floodlights flickered intermittently, casting ghostly shadows that danced across the field. The first half was uneventful, with both teams playing as though they were in a trance. It was during halftime that things started to unravel. I decided to stretch my legs and head down to the locker rooms. Maybe getting some player interviews would provide a distraction from the growing sense of dread. As I made my way through the dimly lit corridors, I heard faint whispers echoing off the walls. I paused, straining to make out the words, but they were indistinguishable. Shaking my head, I continued on, attributing the whispers to my imagination. When I reached the locker room area, I found it deserted. The usual hustle and bustle of halftime was absent. I pushed open the door to the Brazilian locker room and froze. The air was thick with a metallic scent, and the lights flickered ominously. My heart pounded as I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of life. Then I saw it. In the center of the room, lying in a pool of dark, glistening liquid, was one of the players. His eyes were wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. I rushed over, my pulse racing, and checked for a pulse. Nothing. My mind raced, trying to comprehend what had happened. The door behind me creaked, and I spun around, half expecting to see the killer. But there was no one there. I backed out of the locker room, my breaths coming in short, panicked gasps. As I made my way back to the field, I tried to call for help, but my phone had no signal. Panic clawed at my chest. This was no ordinary game. Something sinister was at play. The second half had started when I returned, but the atmosphere had grown even more oppressive. The players moved like marionettes, their eyes hollow and vacant. I glanced up at the stands, expecting to see the few fans who had shown up, but they were gone. The stadium was completely empty. I turned to my fellow journalists, hoping to find some answers, but their faces were twisted in fear. One of them, a seasoned reporter named Jack, caught my eye and motioned for me to follow him. We ducked into a nearby hallway, away from the eerie spectacle on the field. "I don't know what's happening," Jack whispered, his voice trembling. "But we need to get out of here, now." Just as he spoke, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the corridor. We exchanged terrified glances and sprinted towards the exit. The stadium had become a labyrinth of shadows and echoes, each corner hiding potential horrors. As we ran, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. We burst through a door, finding ourselves in a dark, narrow hallway. The whispers were deafening now, like a chorus of the damned. I could feel them pressing in on me, suffocating me. Jack grabbed my arm, pulling me forward. "Keep moving," he urged. We stumbled upon a stairwell and hurried down, our footsteps echoing in the silence. At the bottom, we found ourselves in the underground parking garage. The dim, flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the concrete walls. We paused to catch our breath, but the whispers followed us, relentless and malevolent. "This way," Jack panted, pointing towards a dimly lit exit sign. We made our way towards the exit, the whispers growing fainter with each step. Just as we reached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening bang. We froze, staring at the door in horror. Jack tried to open it, but it was locked. "There's another way out," I said, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. Back through the main hall, we retraced our steps, the whispers once again growing louder. As we passed by the locker rooms, I couldn't help but glance inside. The body was gone. My blood ran cold. We hurried down the hallway back towards the field. When we emerged onto the pitch, the scene had changed. The players were no longer moving. They stood frozen, like statues, their eyes fixed on something unseen. The air was thick with an unnatural darkness, pressing in on us from all sides. "There's no way out," Jack whispered, his voice filled with despair. Suddenly, the floodlights went out, plunging the stadium into darkness. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling my mind with a cacophony of voices. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head, trying to drown out the noise. Through the darkness, I could see shadowy figures moving towards us, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "Run!" Jack screamed, but it was too late. The shadows engulfed us, their cold, clammy hands reaching out, pulling us into the darkness. I felt a cold, sharp pain in my chest, and then nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the pitch, the floodlights blazing overhead. The stadium was once again filled with the roar of fans, the players moving with their usual vigor. I sat up, gasping for breath. Jack was beside me, his face pale and drawn. "What happened?" I asked, my voice trembling. Jack shook his head, his eyes haunted. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here." We made our way to the exit, not daring to look back. As we left the stadium, the whispers faded, replaced by the familiar sounds of the city. But I knew that I would never forget the darkness that had engulfed us, or the feeling of something ancient and malevolent watching from the shadows. As I walked away from the stadium, I couldn't shake the feeling that the game wasn't over, that it would never be over, not for us.